House Leader of the Third Party.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. In 2019, the final report from the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls delivered 231 individual calls for justice directed at governments, institutions, social service providers, industries, and all Canadians. Here's a selection of the calls for justice that require immediate and continuing action. Ensuring that Indigenous people have access to safe housing, clean drinking water, and adequate food. Providing adequate, stable, equitable, and ongoing funding for Indigenous-centred and community-based health and wellness services that are accessible and culturally appropriate, meet the health and wellness needs of Indigenous women, girls, and 2SL LGBTQIA+ people. Establish a guaranteed annual livable income for all Canadians, including Indigenous peoples, to meet all their social and economic needs. Recognizing Indigenous peoples' right to self-determination in the pursuit of economic social development. Supporting programs and services for Indigenous women, girls, and 2SL LGBTQIA+ people in the sex industry to promote their safety and security. Immediately commence the construction of new housing and the provision of repairs for existing housing to meet the housing needs of Indigenous women, girls, and 2SL LGBTQIA+ people. Support the establishment and long-term sustainable funding of Indigenous-led low-barrier shelters, safe spaces, transition homes, second-stage housing and services for Indigenous women, girls, and 2SL LGBTQIA+ people who are homeless, near homeless, dealing with food insecurity, poverty, and who are fleeing violence or have been subjected to sexualized violence and exploitation. Develop and fund safe and affordable transportation services for Indigenous women, girls, and 2SL LGBTQIA+ people living in rural and remote communities. Immediately and dramatically transform Indigenous policing from its current state as a mere delegation to an exercise in self-governance and self-determination over policing. Provide legislated paid leave and disability benefits for victims of crime or traumatic events. Expanding and adequately resourcing legal aid programs in order to ensure that Indigenous women, girls, and 2SL LGBTQIA+ people have access to justice and meaningful participation in the justice system. Increasing accessibility to meaningfully and culturally appropriate justice practices by expanding restorative justice programs and Indigenous peoples' courts, taking urgent and special measures to ensure that Indigenous women, girls, and 2SL LGBTQIA+ people are represented in governance, that their political rights are respected and upheld. I've listed only 13 of 231 individual calls to justice. And as leaders of our communities, members of the legislature, we can and must do everything we can to fulfill these calls for justice. And we do need to do the work, and it will take time, but we owe it to everybody to get this work done expeditiously and in keeping with the need to fulfill every one of these calls for justice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.